All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series, but the QA is the important part, obviously stands for question and answers. We like to have an interactive conversation about the top tech news stories, dabble with a little tech politics. Maybe we're going to cover some rumors. I'm not the biggest fan of covering leaks and rumors, and maybe there are a couple this week that are kind of interesting that we should talk about. But really, we just like to expand a bit. We like to follow tech stories as they evolve, not just get outraged by a headline on social media, and, sort of dig a little deeper than the average tech enthusiast. Already seeing an incredible group in the chat right now. Let me get this back here. I'm seeing Brian Glay saying, "Good morning, techies." JGJ, we hear you. The rest of the world should hear you. If you're talking to me, it's pretty flattering, JGJ. Thank you. We got Bionic Scoop coming in. One! And I can say, Scoop! Michael C2 saying, "Screw it, I'll bring out the LG V60 for the stream today. It's as good of an occasion as any other." And Wes Easton, over on the Facebooks, Mr. Wes Easton, "I am outraged by your mention of outrage. Ugh, tech in my politics and politics in my tech. How come you can't be non-political and stuff? Outrage!" John Gow wishing everybody happy Monday morning. We've got Jimmy Fire Dragon just saying hey to everybody. Command Control Device saying hello. Simon says Hypno says happy time zone. Happy time zone. One Son John saying hey everybody. Ron GKP saying hello all. Georgie's gonna be swinging by for a little bit. He's got to go to work, but I appreciate that he's watching part of the show here. I'm missing someone. Oh, David Lockwood. David Lockwood. Hey Juan, may the 4th be with you and also with you. May the 4th be with you all. I love it. I love it. Now I lost the. There we go. Okay, let me clear that there. So, hope everybody had a lovely weekend. This is our first weekend off from softball in a really long time. So we vegged. We were couch potatoes, and we tried to do a little homework, home maintenance work yesterday, and it kind of blew up in our faces. Just need to replace some blinds in some of the bedrooms, and I was looking at maybe we can get some window films and some treatments just kind of help with our AC. My wall faces west, so in the afternoons I just roast in this office, especially if the main workstation I work on is on. This is one of the main things like I love about some of these little ARM laptops is like they sip electricity. So I work on that in the afternoons and only turn on the workstation when I need to like crunch some big video. We tried to replace blinds. We found out 2 of our bedrooms have very non-standard sized windows. So we have to get like custom blinds made. It's just really really silly stuff. So I hope everybody out there had a good time. Oh, hey, AI makes your brain shrink. Jumping in, catching it live for once. Nice. And AI makes your brain shrink typoed live with love. And I love that you're dropping by to catch the show live. AI makes your brain shrink. I'm glad you could jump in. So let me get this out of the way here. We have kind of an interesting run of show, and the last couple of weeks where I've left a little time just to kind of riff. There are topics that we want to cover, if there are reviews that you want to discuss, if there's more social media outrage that you just want me to raise my blood pressure on. I like a few of those moments have really been fun. So I'm going to try and make this podcast not 3 hours long. I want to jump into some housekeeping. We're going to cover the news. We've got gadget block and some rumors to talk about. But I like owing a little time at the end if there's some more open-ended questions or camera stuff or audio stuff. I've got so many headphones on my desk and I haven't finished reviews on any of them. We should chat. It's really good times. So let me get this out of the way here. Jumping right into some housekeeping. It's 9:05 in the AM, and I have no idea how long this is going to take me because last week was busy on both the Patreon and on the public production, the public channels too. So starting with the Patreon, yesterday I just kind of had a bug up my butt, so I wrote a quick editorial. Is anyone else weirded out by gadgets with built-in cables? I feel this is a bad idea. I was playing around with this battery that has this sort of lanyard strap that turns into your USB-C plug, and it just got me thinking. So I wrote out my thoughts, and if you have strong thoughts on gadgets with built-in cables, I'd really love to hear your feedback. I got some great comments on it, by the way. So that was fun. Then in this is in preview, so it's in early access. 3 screens on 1 laptop. X-Book review is go. This is that crazy laptop I was telling you about, where I'm sure I'm gonna get a whole bunch of people going, oh, but why would you even buy a thing that has stuff that's different? How come you just don't do accessories? And because when I do accessories, like multiple monitor accessories, why do you even need accessories? Why do you just do regular laptop? I think very lowly of tech enthusiasts that cannot put themselves in the shoes of someone else who might want a niche device. I think multi-monitor laptops are cool. I now have 2 in my office that have really silly configurations and solutions for built-in multiple monitors, and I love them both. It's so nice. Wes Easton, can cables be made with bitter materials so cats and dogs stop chomping them? Can I get my cables in sriracha flavor? So our current dog, Brian, he's actually pretty good. He will nap here in my office, and my office is littered with cables, and he seems completely not interested in any of the cables. My first dog, Bigelow, who passed like 10 years ago, that dog not only would like lick and chew on everything, but whenever we would try those remedies like, oh, this is how you get your dog to stop licking on things, that dog would make himself sick licking the materials, the sprays. We tried some kind of like chili, which just made him horrifically sick, but he kept licking at it. So that dog was proper stupid. Again, you can always count on an animal to like find a way. I really want to chew on this thing. It tastes awful. Oh, let me try that again. Oh, it still tastes awful. Hold on, let me try that again. He was absolutely that kind of dog. I miss that dog. He was a good dog. Hold on, let me get this out of the way here. Okay, sorry. Let me get back into housekeeping. I don't want to get too sidetracked. But triple screen laptop. I'm telling you, folks, you haven't lived until you've used a crazy, ridiculous multi-monitor setup that other techies are gonna act like it's no big deal. Then this was big, and I think I'm gonna keep this in as a Patreon exclusive. My Oppo Find X9 Ultra first look, the best camera hardware of the year, and I probably won't be buying one. I got to meet up with my buddy, one Mr. TK Bay, who I'm wearing his hat as we speak, and we did a little photo walk at a gardens near my place. And actually, the photos here on the live stream aren't formatting properly, so apologies. You're seeing like the bottom third of every photo cut off. But TK has been rocking the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, and so I maybe stole it from him while he was collecting samples for his Vivo X300 Ultra. And I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts on the Find X9 Ultra. So this isn't a review. It's not even like the same kind of just analytical, let's break down the specs and unbox it. Nothing like that. This is purely, I took it out and I shot hundreds of photos with it, and I tried out that new crazy telephoto adapter. It's a 300mm equivalent lens, and this is definitely, I believe this is the camera hardware winner of the year, and I'm almost 99% positive that I'm going to stick with Vivo for my actual work. And I'm usually the hardware guy. I'm usually like, I was an LG fan. Talk about someone who loved hardware over software issues. But shooting with this phone, realizing what its potential might be, and then picking up my Vivo X300 Ultra, I think I'm going to stick with the Vivo. So if you would like to see my thoughts or read my thoughts on why that is, with some beautiful images of flowers and landscapes, and there's like a little, Japanese pagoda and some fish and a duck, then it's here. It's the Oppo Find X9 Ultra First Look. I mean, I totally understand why it's getting the attention that it is, but I don't think I'm going to jump on this one. So, and then publicly, we got the video out public for the 8849 TankPad Ultra, and I have an important question in this because everything on this is this tablet is an upgrade over the previous ridiculous TankPad, but there's one thing that's not an upgrade that I wonder if folks will consider to be a deal breaker. So you should definitely check that out. No way! Hold on, we got to push pause here real quick. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. So I got to highlight this comment from Facebook. This is Senora Alarid. This was my Ballet Folklorico maestra. And I haven't talked to you in a really long time. Senora, you'd be so proud. I've just started teaching my daughter some folklorico footwork. Specifically, I'm starting with Nuevo Leon and Veracruz. So just getting some of that light tippy-tappy stuff. So everyone say hey to my senora. Mi maestra. I'm so glad you dropped by. I'm just stoked to see you in the chat. If y'all want to sidetrack, a tech politics conversation for a little bit, we can talk about my philosophy on dance, because my daughter is a hardcore softball player. But like, no, you need to know a little dance. I'm teaching you some folk dance and some stepping, and maybe we'll get to some hip hop someday. She fights me on hip hop. My 10-year-old daughter is fighting me on hip hop, and it's breaking my heart. And I'm like, hey, if you really want to learn about like body isolation, controlling your movement, it's ballet and hip hop. So yeah. Oh, you know what? The next time we're back visiting family in New Mexico, I will take you up on that. I am horrifically out of shape, but my feet are still pretty quick. I just don't have the stamina. So we might have to do that. I think you'd get a kick out of my daughter. Anyway, so moving right along, as housekeeping just goes off in a completely different direction. Brian Glaze, this is what I'm saying, man. Fighting me on hip hop, unacceptable. This is like, I don't care if you eat your vegetables. We gotta go do some hip hop. You're grounded. All right, we got to just get through these. I did a little short. One of my favorites. So this is tricky. This is kind of tricky. Do I have them in front of me? Yes, I do. Okay, so a lot of techie influencer, YouTuber kind of people will say, oh, this is one of my favorites. I'm doing this literally. My 3 favorite Bluetooth wireless earbuds are the Status Pro X. These are triple driver. I like these a lot. Do I have them? My OnePlus Pro, even though they don't fit my ears very well, when I really wedge them in there and I'm not chewing, I really like the OnePlus Buds Pro. And then they don't have the best noise canceling, but I love the sound on these Edifier. So these are my 3 favorite Bluetooth wireless earbuds. So when I say one of my favorites, I actually do literally mean one of 3. So I know that was a long walk to get here. One of my favorite earbuds is now available in a new color. So those Status Pro X, the triple drivers, just some of the prettiest sounding Bluetooth earbuds that you can get. You can now get in a color option. So you can either get in black, like they launched, I think about 6 months ago, somewhere around there. Oh, hold on. Whoops, there we go. Okay, about 6 months ago, and now they come in this new moonbeam color. And if you like boutique audiophile-ish earbuds, when I first reviewed Status, there was the Status Between 3. That came in this kind of cream color. They didn't call it Moonbeam, but it was like a cream and silver accent. And now they come in a cream and copper, kind of a cream and gold. So again, I just thought that was cool. I made a little short on it. You can see what they look like against each other. And also just a slightly more unique look. This is an earbud that's not just going to look like every other AirPod clone. So then the biggie, and for those of you who are listening on the audio version of this podcast, I just fell behind because, like I said, I got a ton of stuff out over this last week. So this will be coming as an audio only um, extra episode of the podcast. But I had a really fun time sitting down with one of the co-creators of Clicks Technology. So this is Jeff Gadway, and he's one of the co-founders of Clicks. He's a former employee from BlackBerry and executive at BlackBerry. And we riffed for over an hour on the Clicks communicator. So this is anyone in my audience, you know what the Clicks communicator is. It's sort of the spiritual successor to a BlackBerry Key. It's a keyboard phone. It's got a headphone jack. It's got a memory card slot. It's a retro device, and this is a big fad right now. You know, flip phones, minimalistic phones, dumb phones. All these fads have kind of come back in a cycle. Every couple of years, we do this. Oh, are you too addicted to your phone? Then you can get a dumb phone. And then everyone acts totally surprised that these are actually trends driven by younger consumers. But Jeff, very generous with his time. We chatted for like 90 minutes, and I cut that down to about an hour long meat and potatoes conversation. But he was really candid. Like, I was asking him questions from my audience on Patreon about things like maintenance and bootloaders. He detailed some of their decisions on things like how they came about the headphone jack and whether or not there was going to be a premium audiophile DAC. I even tagged him like with a joke about AI, and he totally ran with like, oh, well, if you're going to talk about AI, let me tell you about all this AI slop. And it was hilarious because he was calling out, but not really. He was kind of calling out a bunch of other manufacturers that are saying things like, oh, we'll make this AI play and our stock price will go to the moon, and then it crashes. So this is really one of the most fun nerd conversations I've had in a while from someone who's deep in the philosophy of the products and the services they're trying to make, and was, you know, legit old school BlackBerry. So if you had a love or a fondness for classic phones, like during the interview, I pulled out my red Key 2 is back on the bookshelf, but I had it obviously within arm's reach. And we had a whole riff on like, well, what even was BlackBerry? Like, what made BlackBerry? Why can't that work today? And I actually really appreciated his answer. I didn't completely agree, but I did appreciate that he had an answer for, you know, like, why couldn't you just make a Key 3 today kind of a thing. So it was a great conversation. I will be making that into an audio only episode that will come out this week. But if you want, you can head over to the YouTube or on the Patreon, and you can catch that in its entirety ready to go right now. So I'm going to take a quick drink of coffee here. And let me get this out of the way. I'm going to take a quick drink of coffee here, and then I think we need to get into some news blog. We do have some heavy stuff to start with. So I don't normally do a lot of trigger or content warnings, but we are going to be talking about adult content that is made non-consensually with AI services. So let me push pause for just a second here, drink, and then we'll get through that. And then we've got a whole bunch of other stuff that I think is going to be a lot of fun. But this is an important one. So 2 seconds. Okay, so everything we're going to talk about, everything that we covered in housekeeping, everything that all of the news links, and of course all of the community stuff. You'll find all of that linked and organized for the blog post for this week's episode on somegadgetguy.com. Of course, there's also the Patreon, patreon.com/somegadgetguy, where I like to put the slightly more cleaned up, polished up audio version of the podcast. But you can always catch the the sort of public version, maybe there are a few interruptions. I like to highlight some of my friends, little ads that are sprinkled throughout. But if you want the ad-free, clean, concise version of my almost 3-hour podcast every week, you can catch that on the Patreon. I always greatly appreciate folks who are sharing, who are supporting, all of the lovely folks in the chat right now, and those of you who like to do things like review podcasts on your favorite podcast services. So let me get this here. And oh, ER 1980. That is a very good question that I would love to answer later in the episode. So definitely hit me back with that in a bit. We've got to cover, these are 2 stories from Ars Technica, back to back. Actually, I think one of them, yeah, so the first one we're going to talk about actually came from Wired.com, but was republished on Ars Technica. And this was written up by E.J. Dixon. Women sue the men who used their Instagram feeds to create AI porn influencers. A little over a year ago, MG was leading the relatively normal life of a 20-something in Scottsdale, Arizona. She worked as a personal assistant, and supplemented her income by waiting tables on the weekends. Like most women her age, she had an Instagram account where she'd occasionally post stories and photos of herself getting matcha and hanging out by the pool with her friends or going to Pilates. Last summer, she received a DM from one of her followers. Did she know the person asked her that photos and videos of a woman who looked exactly like MG were circulating on Instagram. MG clicked the link and saw multiple reels of what appeared to be her face superimposed onto a body that looked exactly like her own. The woman in the photo was scantily clad with tattoos in the same place as MG. This is a really deep dive into the sort of personal aspects of what's been happening on these social media services that, again, folks in our chat and folks that, you know, we've been following stories similar to these, we let tech bros rush forward, right? The whole Silicon Valley mantra of move fast and break things. And we rarely give our legal system a chance to catch up. That as soon as laws start getting formed on behavior through technology, the tech bros are already 2 or 3 more fads ahead. And we rarely take the time to look back and say, hey, there's been behavior here. This has been damaging to people. This has hurt individuals. How do we properly cover the harms of some of these technologies? This one seemed pretty clear as we started seeing AI image generation that creepy, skeezy dudes were gonna do really dumb things with this technology, and it would be hurtful and harmful in a legal sense to the victims, but it's just so funny. It was 2 years ago on this podcast. We were talking about an incident in a high school, and unwittingly, technically, there were boys in high school that were creating adult racy images of underage students. So after a point, our legal system has to ask, what is the crime here? Because it's technically child abuse materials. But again, bunch of dumb boys in high school given these weapons grade AI systems to go off and create this content. Can we expect them to consider the ramifications of their actions, both on their victims, primary, but also legally for themselves, much lower secondary? I don't think they're mature or responsible enough to consider the long-term effects of that. But they saw this cool thing on the internet and look, oh, get that photo of Becky. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And then they can spread that and harm individuals at a scale we've never seen before. So again, I'd have to look up the exact episode number that we covered this the first time, and it's a very delicate and it's a very sensitive topic, and it's very difficult to talk about on social media because I've probably already like shadow banned and demonetized my podcast this week because I said the P word. Oh my gosh. But that's a major problem that we as a society, especially as tech nerds who are supposed to be familiar with this stuff, should at least have some kind of awareness or some kind of opinion on how these tools and systems are used. They're absolutely not being safeguarded. And we just saw the ramifications of that play out at scale with Elon Musk and Grok on Twitter, where you could just sort of run roughshod. You could go to someone's Twitter account. If they shared any media of themselves, you could tell Grok to do some really ugly things with those images of people that had no interest in participating with that kind of media or that kind of content. So we have to consider this non-consensual. By definition, I am not a lawyer, but I feel like the legal arguments are there. The legal arguments there are pretty clear. So this is a very storied and personal account of a series of lawsuits that we're going to be seeing for these AI systems. And the problem is we have to do this in a very traditionally legal way. And that means, hey, we're going to go after this company. They have a website, and you can put an image into the website, and then an image pops back out based on your prompts. But that website likely isn't an AI system. It's likely just a front end for another engine of a more popular AI system. And they're using their own sort of manipulative prompts to get around any safeguards from the more mainstream AI platform. So I don't believe it's Google's Gemini or Veo or whatever, but it's something like that. So maybe it's OpenAI, right? So OpenAI, if you just do business with OpenAI, OpenAI says, "Oh, we've got these safeguards, and you can't do this, and we won't generate these types of images." But then another company can kind of just say, "Oh, we're gonna burn all these tokens. We're gonna pay OpenAI, so you can pay us, and because we have a different kind of an account, we can kind of get around some of those other issues. And if you're really clever with your prompts, we can really figure this stuff out." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So you go after that front-facing company, it's just going to shutter. It's just going to close down, and it's going to be really difficult to track down, well, who really owns and operates the front face, and then also, is there any responsibility from the back-end engines that are powering these little front-face solutions? And that's going to be a really messy situation to untangle, is where is the responsibility and where is the liability? And I guarantee you that for all these companies like the Googles and Microsofts and OpenAIs and Anthropics, sure, they're really going to make sure that there's responsible AI safeguards in place. But we also kind of know that a major driving factor of image generation and video generation is going to be adult content. It was going to be a more significant play for OpenAI. It was the big gooner play from Elon Musk and Grok on Twitter. I don't believe there is a way to perfectly capture all of this material and information and design so that an AI can generate a human form, but then say, "Oh, but not the no-no bits." I don't think that's realistic with the way that we've packaged, trained, and now deliver AI content. So we've got to keep an eye on how these lawsuits play out. I think it's an unfortunate inevitability that we'll have to deal with this kind of abuse because there are a lot of really gross people out there. But that doesn't mean we roll over and just accept it. That's what an Elon Musk or a Sam Altman want. They want you to just be exhausted, roll over and say, "Well, I guess, what can we do?" Well, what we can do is what these women are doing. Is you have your day in court, and you force precedent through the courts, and then once you have precedent in the courts, you go after elected officials and you say, put laws on the books. And so, yeah, maybe we can't stop the technical generation of these images, but we can make it deeply, deeply unfashionable and punitively expensive to do something this skeezy. Again, the court of public opinion also matters here too. We have turned a lot of things into, they're not technically illegal, but deeply unpopular to try now. And I think that social stigma can go a long way too. And if nothing else, for the parents that are concerned about their boys and are their boys coming up healthy and what's the problem for their boys. If you don't get after your boys, they could find themselves in deep, serious legal trouble. So get involved. Help guide them through this. Don't, oh, you know, he's just doing things on his iPad. Well, he's just so tech savvy. No, 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 no. No, no, no. If you care about your boys, care about your boys. Go get your boy. He needs a little help. So I want to follow this one up because, you know, I would say, hey, that process, we go through the courts, we set legal precedent in the courts through the judicial system. I have like a hair on me or something. And then we do something like, bum, ba, ba, ba. Minnesota passes ban on fake AI nudes. App makers risk $500,000 fines. And guess what? Guess what? Social media network is really. Oh, you know what? My chat is blocking this. I'm gonna try and. Nah, I'm gonna leave that. Sorry. Can I just toggle the chat? Yeah, we'll pop the chat on and off. Apologies. More evidence of Grok CSAM seen as Minnesota passes nudifying app ban. So funny to see Twitter and Grok named directly in an article like this, written up by Ashley Bellinger, just a gem over at Ars Technica. This week, Minnesota became the first state to pass a law banning nudification apps that make it easy to undress or sexualize images of real people. Under the law, developers of websites, apps, software, or other services designed to nudify images risk extensive damages, including punitive damages if a victim decides to sue. All victims should decide to sue. That was my editorializing, sorry. Back to the article. Their offending product could also be blocked in the state. Additionally, Minnesota's Attorney General could impose fines up to $500,000 per fake AI nude flagged. Any fines collected would be used to fund services for victims of sexual assault, general crime, domestic violence, and child abuse. So this is what I was alluding to, though. So say you've got one of these skeezy websites up and operating. Well, you just got hit with this lawsuit, you just got hit with this fine. If you were smart to set up your website as like some kind of LLC or some kind of corporation, you can just shutter the corp. You'll never pay the $500,000 per image, and the victims won't really see any financial compensation from that. But what we could also do is say, all right, the front end, the web page you go to is not the full engine and system and service. So what was the backbone of that service? Because that's really the servers and the data centers that are generating that image. And from there, well, if it's just this warehouse full of servers that's owned and operated by someone, I believe the final end result of these fines should go to whoever's operating the data center. This is really messy stuff because this gets us into more modern interpretations of things like the Communications Decency Act, Section 230. Like, Google is not responsible for what someone says on YouTube. They're the platform. They're not an editor, even though they have all of this editorial control. But go with me on this. So the server, you could make this argument saying, oh, well, we're just this data processing warehouse. We're not responsible for the content that a front-end service puts through our image generating hardware. You have to go after them. And that's where we're going to have a really messy fight. We do need to see some kind of refinement to Section 230 of the CDA. I doubt conservatives are actually in earnest when they talk about this stuff. Really, they just kind of want more lies and propaganda and misrepresentation of social services and lies out there. Because I don't know if you noticed this, but like consistently when it comes to social policy, it's really the conservatives that do all the lying. Democrats are ineffectual, but they don't lie to the same degree. So this is going to be a very big fight over the coming years. And it's wrapped up in so much social ick. Like there's so much stigma surrounding adult content. So it is ruthlessly damaging, especially in the United States, where we have a very puritanical view on adult content. It is ruthlessly damaging, and it is done with intent to harm, in my opinion, that the degradation, the degrading aspect of making non-consensual images of women is a part of the power trip, which makes this feel enticing, that makes it feel salacious. That's the taboo. She didn't want me to, so I'm gonna do it, right? So after a point, yes, we have to go after the companies. The companies can shutter and play shell games and pop back up. You can play whack-a-mole, but I also think there needs to be some examination of the business practices from these data centers. And then I think you need to go after the users. I think you need to go after the people who are putting in the images and putting in the prompts. I don't know that there's a way to create the social stigma without making a few examples of people doing things that they absolutely shouldn't do and should know they shouldn't do. That becomes the conversation around consensual content. This is by definition harmful, designed to harm and degrade, and the sick thrill of it is that they're degrading someone who did not consent. It's vile, and we need to attack every chain of it. And we're still playing this game of, I don't know, but guys, do you think AI will be bad? Do you think AI is gonna be, should we do things about AI? We're years. I mean, again, I started bringing up these topics a couple years ago, and kids were getting themselves into trouble because they just had unfettered access to these kinds of tools. And we still haven't really made much social progress in trying to rein in some really terrible, terrible business practices while we listen to dudes like Elon Musk and Sam Altman say, oh yeah, well obviously the next phase of this is everyone's gonna have like a robot girlfriend. Like, yeah, okay. Maybe we should say no. It's just really dumb. John Gao saying only 500,000 though? As a state law, let's say baby steps. I'm with you. Insufficient. And you will never recoup that money from these skeezy front ends. But we got to start somewhere. And now we see, is this policy going to be effective in any way? We definitely need to see how a major platform like Twitter handles this. Because Twitter can't just shutter their front end, and it doesn't seem like Elon Musk is just going to turn off Grok. So if Elon Musk gets tagged for all of the images that Grok has created, we showed this on the podcast. Woman would like post a photo of her like going out to dinner, and then you'd see a string of replies of dudes telling Grok to do things to that image. It was that public, that blatant, and that immediate. Now, there were some adult performers who leaned into it. And you would then have to say, well, is an adult performer's admission or acceptance of that actually consent? If you're my age, you remember like hanging chads in a presidential election. That's really tough. But for me, you can't preemptively consent to something like that. You post an image of yourself in a pretty dress to go out for an evening, and a bunch of dudes tell Grok to do things to that image. Unless you put it in the original tweet, hey guys, I look so cute right now. What do you think Grok could do to my photo? Then anything following that should be a $500,000 fine per tweet, per Grok request. So on one image, you could probably rack up a couple $1,000,000, several $1,000,000 in fines for that kind of behavior. And there's a lot of images being shared on the Twitter these days. So it's real gross. It's real bad. Um, well, let me take another quick drink of coffee here, real quick. Uh, Yeah, Michael C2. And this is why I feel like we need to come down a lot harder. Michael C2 says, yes, especially since communities that engage in this kind of harassment know how to make themselves relatively anonymous. It's like Gamergate. So if you only go after users, you're not going to find most of them. Some of them are definitely stupid enough to do that in a way to be traced, but some of these people are engaged in pretty sophisticated tech-savvy harassment. And it's like, we've got to make every step of this as unfashionable as possible. Because right now we're creating these little insulated pockets of hate. Like Twitter has just become this little walled garden of hateful people with no repercussions for being hateful. There's no pushback. And as we saw from the people that were trying to speak truth to power and were trying to educate people on Twitter, when they stopped getting a return for their investment in time and effort and paying for check marks and stuff, they left Twitter too. Like the EFF. My pals at the EFF are very much against deplatforming, and they were just deplatformed from Twitter. They weren't banned from Twitter, but they were algorithmically ranked so low that no one was seeing their posts. So they packed up, they went home, and they took their ball, and now they're not posting on Twitter anymore. That's modern deplatforming. They're not going to be martyred out of this because they have no public visibility. They're not popular. They're not bringing more people into their ranks. And Twitter was able to completely chill engagement on their content. So if we go after the individual end users of these services, the front ends that are likely just shell corporations, the engines that are creating this content, and eventually tag some of these major players in this space, some of the big tech companies that are talking about furthering their interests by creating adult content, that's, I believe, the only way that we can effectively fight this. If we just go like one little baby step in this one direction, and the company, the front-facing company that's really not a full corporation and doesn't run their own data centers, this isn't going to work at all. But we got to start somewhere. So this, I think, is a great place to start. There is a state law in Minnesota. And so if you've been the victim of some kind of targeted harassment or AI nudification or non-consensual image generation, I'd start reaching out to your state attorneys general. I would start reaching out to other states because this is a crime that happens globally. So the second it crosses state lines, that's also an issue. I believe that you could start reaching out to people in Minnesota. I believe you could start reaching out to the FBI. And that now needs to be an active tactic. We need to make this deeply, deeply unfashionable. Arthur Lee Brown, guys, AI can't be bad. I can generate my emails faster. I'm burning buckets of water to prompt on emails. And, oh, yeah. I don't know, did I share this last week? I don't even remember. I was playing again with Quen on my X300 Pro, and I took this really like kind of serious email that Marie had written to me about some issues at school, and just, we were talking to one of the counselors at Lexi's school, and I was bored, and I was like, oh, can you turn this into a Shakespearean sonnet? And it was terrible, and I showed it to Marie, and she just got a chuckle out of it, and you're like, this was cute. This was like a funny little thing that we did with AI, but I did it on my phone. I did it like using the battery of my phone. That content didn't get uploaded to a data center, chewed up, worked on, and then sent back. And it was essentially as fast as if I had taken this long letter and uploaded it to a Google or an OpenAI AI. I just don't understand. Like, if you want to tinker with this stuff, like, oh, it's just so cool, like, you could put in this thing and it'll summarize it for you. Yeah, and now that information is in a Google server, is in a Microsoft server, is in an OpenAI server, and we've seen it's actually not that secure. That information seems to be able, like, other requests can access the information that is used to train those AIs. play with some local stuff. It's really easy. It's free. And you don't have that liberal angst that I have of like burning ridiculous amounts of electricity when something that can work on your phone is going to be a negligible impact to your phone's battery life over the course of a day. Unless you have like an iPhone or a Pixel or a Samsung, because you have miserably little batteries and really silly slow charging. So that could be a problem. But if you have a good phone, like a Vivo or a Xiaomi or an Oppo, a OnePlus, and some of the Motorola's are pretty good. Any of these phones that have like good batteries, not miserably stupid Apple batteries, then yeah, do it. You run AI all day long and still like have battery remaining when you get ready to go to sleep at night. Yeah, that got gross. Sorry. Michael C2. Oh wait. Yeah, sorry. Wired had. I think you said Wired had a funny article about a guy duped a bunch of MAGA supporters by being an AI young blonde MAGA hottie. They would send him money for AI images. He said only MAGA people were too dumb to notice. I mean, if you want to be fooled by politicians lying, something tells me you also want to be fooled by AI slop. Arthur Lee Brown, it still blows my mind that people will publicly and openly ask Grok to make adult content of average people on the internet. That's a new low. And again, you can say, oh, I'm anonymous. You're really not. It actually would not be too difficult to get user behavior. And also, we've seen social media companies are now complying with information delivery on users without necessarily always getting warrants. Like, it's kind of a big deal. Like, there's a case going on with Reddit right now where they're being requested to supply user information on anyone who's been critical of the current presidential administration. And I believe currently Reddit is not complying with that directive, but I don't think it'll take much for Reddit to get nudged over. So if you said anything critical about the president on Reddit, your information might end up in the hands of Homeland Security. So that's pretty cool. At that point, you can say, yeah, legally, there's really no protection. Oh, I don't use my real name in my Twitter handle. that's not going to stop someone motivated to find out who you are. Oh, Laura Tafoya saying great info. Hey, Laura, what's up? Sorry that the info is kind of a bummer, but we need to have these conversations with grown-ups, and we need to include kids in better general etiquette for our technology. AI makes your brain shrink. My girl used AI to generate a CV to a new job application. I'm sorry that she had to hear me rant to her about its drawbacks. Okay, so here's the deal. If we really had good clarity on what happens on device and what happens up in the cloud, I would be so stoked for tools like that. Because think about how mind-numbingly, frustratingly boring and drudgery it is to go through your work history and generate a new resume, to upload it to a job site, where then they're going to make you repeat everything that you put in that PDF anyway, right? So that's stupid. That's stupid to make a human go through all of that knowing that it's likely going to get discarded, and also it's probably going to get ignored based on another AI sifting for keywords. So if you don't know what the keywords for that job were, then your resume is not going to get read anyway. So let's say you took all that information and we really did have a co-pilot on your computer. Not what Microsoft is trying to sell us as a handy little AI assistant, but a real secured bucket of your data that only you could access and was air gapped from the rest of the internet. If you could tap that and say, can you just summarize my work history for the last 5 years? That'd be huge. You could dump all of that information into Quen in Pocket Pal and get a summary, and you could use that as a template to create a new resume. Like, I actually love some of these ideas. The thing that pisses me off is that we're training consumers to believe that the most basic language model uses, like here's a long paragraph and I want you to condense the language into a summary, is somehow only possible if we have a data connection that puts all of that information up onto a data center that requires your connection to the internet. So you're utilizing infrastructure. You have to put that information into a data center. The data center burns a ton of electricity making this thing happen, and then it has to come back down to your phone. Flippin' stupid. I've had summarization tools on ultra low power laptops for years now. Little NPUs that can chew up language. They follow these models. You don't need big, huge, heavy, massive inference, complex thinking, and it's not really thinking models, to do something like make a resume. Because you're still going to have to go over it when you're done anyway. You're going to have to polish it up a little, make sure that it's cleaned up, give it a bit of a human edge to it. It's the perfect starting point just to get all of that information lumped out, and I don't want that information going up to a server. I want it on the computer that I have all that information. So, I was talking about those multi-screen laptops. One of the laptops that I use is a dual display laptop, and I run a WanBot. And it's got every article I've ever written, every script, every editorial, every review from Pocket Now, from reviews.org, from Newegg, every project I've ever worked on. It's now 12 years of my writing. Hilariously, it's only like a couple hundred meg, like megabytes of information. And I can use that. Hey, I'm really trying to find out what when did I publish this article on the LG V60? When was the last time I referenced the Galaxy S in one of my scripts? And it gets a lot of this stuff kind of wrong, but it at least shortcuts me into finding the information that I want. Y'all could do this. I'm not running, crazy Python scripts, training neural nets. I'm just taking off-the-shelf open source models, putting them in little container programs, and then pointing those programs to my documents folder. And that's it. You all could do this in minutes. If you were functionally capable of going to a web browser and going to mylivestream.com to watch this live stream or listen to this podcast on the replay, you could be doing all this in an afternoon. I am not special. I'm not, oh, so clever. I'm hacking mainframes and coding AIs. No, I'm scratching the surface of hobbyist use, and it is valuable to me. Oh yeah, JGJ, absolutely. AI is like cyber. It's a media buzzword. We need to be detailing what's a local language model AI use and what's a cloud. And I think this is another thing, like, this should be a class action. Where is my information going? Why aren't you disclosing what's happening to my information? I'm shocked that the EU hasn't come down harder on this type of shenanigan. Arthur Lee Brown, miserably stupid Apple batteries. I just calling them how I see them. You're paying a lot of money for a phone that only gets great battery life. It only gets adequate battery life its first year, and it burns out pretty quick. Oh, Michael C2 saying if I really need to use an LLM, I can use one on a browser. It's so wasted becoming a major part of the OS. Pros and cons there. What I really want is a Star Trek computer. I want a secure enclave with a neural processing unit that can chew up the information that I've given it access to, and I want that to happen on device. I don't want that to happen on the portal I use to go to the internet. So I think for everybody, we're going to have to make these decisions on what fits our usage the best. I don't want what Copilot is doing. I definitely don't want recall. This idea that every 10 seconds my computer is going to screenshot and scrape all the information on my screen. Miss me with that. But I have an incredible collection of documents and spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, and I want quick reference to all the information in there. Open up Microsoft Word and search for content in a document. It's terrible. Microsoft has never improved the ability to search within documents, even though everything's backed up on OneDrive and you've got it stored locally. So what I end up doing is I'll write in Word and then have that saved automatically to my NAS, and then my NAS dumps that into a folder that the AI on that laptop can look for. It's all on the home network, it's not up in the cloud. And then all of that's stored locally, and my laptop can find this way better than Microsoft can with Microsoft's own file. It's real dumb. Yeah, ER 1980. What, you mean like video boost for Pixel? Yes. That's another one. I'm sorry, Pixel fans. It's really stupid. You shot video on your phone, and then the phone took this video and uploaded it to a server. And then that server slapped on some image adjustments, did a little stabilization, and then sent it back to your phone. But you had to store the original raw version of that video and the edited version of that video, and you had to engage in the traffic. So especially if you're on a metered data connection, you had to pay for that video twice with your data, and that's how you get to this final video, and there's no guarantee it's going to do that quickly. If you were to put that video into a video editing app like CapCut or LumaFusion and do all the color and contrast adjustments, you could render that video in higher quality faster than the round trip up to Google servers. There's nothing special about Video Boost. It's a noise removal, it's image stabilization, software image stabilization, and it's color correction and vibrance and contrast. That should happen on your phone. But we're going to talk about the Pixel 11 and why that probably still won't be happening on your phone for the Pixel 11. Let me take another drink of coffee. We're done with the big heavy. I knew that was going to take me a while. I didn't want it to take 40 minutes, but let's move on, and we can tackle the rest of our news here. Oh, from Lil Wani. I did not. Did you see that you can now buy local black box Gemini machines for Enterprise? The model is stored on a tamper-proof ROM, but you can run it on your Enterprise intranet. I think stuff like that's interesting because if you're a big enough corporation, at some point, if you want to run local models, I wonder what companies will look at that as a solution and say, oh, how great, we don't need to build our own box. But then they're beholden to Google. So if they don't get support for those machines, or if models adapt and evolve over time, or if the information needs some other kind of manipulation, does that mean they have to go and buy new boxes? Does that mean they can update for their company's needs? Like, there's some interesting upfront cost savings, but then some longer term ramifications versus like, we've got a couple servers that aren't doing much and it's older hardware, but what we could do is we could run our own models and lock them down, and now employees could access that for our company intranet. You know, there pros and cons. There's going to be some really interesting corporate decision making, I think, over the next couple of years, because there are some useful tools in this stuff. But this idea that we're going to turn everything over to language models is ruthlessly stupid, because even NVIDIA is admitting that AI is not any kind of financial benefit. This is written up by Sasha Rogelberg over at fortune.com. The cost of compute is far beyond the costs of the employees. NVIDIA executive says right now AI is more expensive than paying human workers. Other tech leader, oh wait, let me just go ahead and jump down to this. This is the quote from Brian Catanzaro? Catanzaro? I don't know how to pronounce that name. I apologize. For my team, the cost of compute is far beyond the cost of the employees. Brian, vice president of applied deep learning at NVIDIA, recently told Axios. An MIT study from 2024 backs up Costanzaro's experience analyzing the technical requirements of AI models needed to perform jobs at a human level. Researchers found that AI automation would be economically viable in only 23% of roles where vision is a primary part of the work. And the remaining 77% of the time, it was cheaper for humans to continue the work. And from 2 years ago to today, we have not seen the incredible advancements in reasoning and capacity and inference and telecommunications that would mean to me that AI is actually capable of doing all these things that CEOs of these companies say AI can do. It is not economically viable. I sound like such a ruthlessly annoying broken record. There is no business model here. There isn't. The CEOs are talking out both sides of their face. They're trying to appease the public by saying, hey, when we give you these tools, it's going to make you more productive for your boss, and it's going to free up all of this busy work. But the bosses are hearing, oh, because my employees are more productive, I can fire a bunch of my employees and put more work on the ones remaining. And then the AI tool is actually put into operation, and it doesn't make the job of the employee easier. It makes it more difficult. So now you have fewer employees doing more work just to satisfy the human demands. And then on top of that, they're having to fix the problems of the AI. So you've just tripled. Let's say you fired half your employee. I'm just doing this as a stupid math problem. Let's say you fired half of your employees, and that only doubled the work of all of your remaining employees, and then you add the AI on top, so you've tripled the workload of your remaining employees, but the job market kind of sucks right now. So you're basically just working all of your employees to burnout while all the executives are getting incredible pay raises and all these benefits and their stock options and their bonuses, and everybody's struggling except for the CEOs. That's what we've created with machines that are completely unsustainable. So this is the cheapest AI is ever going to be. If more people actually do start using it, the cost of tokens is going to skyrocket. Companies investing in AI right now and utilizing AI in their workflow, this is the cheapest it's going to get. The tech scales and gets ridiculously more expensive when we need to put more data center oomph behind these tools. And especially once you're hooked, let's say AI does get good enough that you can use it to replace a whole bunch of employees. Once your bosses are hooked on that, are they going to go back to hiring humans? Oh, humans are such a liability and they're so expensive and the AI can do all their work for them. Oh, our AI token costs just quintupled. What do you do? There is no sustainable business model in cloud AI. I didn't put it in the show notes. I mean, I didn't put it in this week's stories, but I might put it in the show notes. Google's looking like they just did their quarterly and they beat expectations, and oh, they set such low goals for ourselves and we managed to beat them. Oh, isn't the stock market so happy? Their capex, they're saying we're going to put another 200 billion into AI this year, and they're just continuing to inflate a bubble. I'm going to start calling it this. Please don't take anything I say as any kind of investment advice, because this entire market looks incredibly manipulated. So where I would normally say, hey, it would be like in the housing market crisis in 2007, there were a bunch of people who could short the housing market and they came out incredibly wealthy. Right now, I feel like the market is so gerrymandered and so rigged. What should be a corrective action, like shorting AI companies, is going to be completely impossible until the entire thing craters. And then we'll have to bail out companies. They got to experiment with taxpayer dollars, and we're going to facilitate their further experiments with taxpayer dollars. It's going to get really gross because I see no sustainable alternative. the way that we're building these data centers, the way that we're obsoleting the technology in the data centers, and the way that we're returning to burning gas to power these things, we're not looking at a sustainable long-term practice. We're looking at what is going to be the shortest possible way to bump a stock price over the next fiscal quarter so that shareholders are happy. And shareholders keep acting like we can negotiate with the environment. Shareholders keep acting like the stock market is the economy. And they're ignoring all of the people that are being hurt by this, all of the environmental catastrophe that's being caused by this. But you know what? For a couple quarters, our stock price was looking real good. It's great. It's great. When really, I mean, if you think about it, the one job that would actually be handled pretty well by a language model would be an executive at a tech company. Like, just get rid of your CEO and put an LLM in there, some kind of figurehead, and actually that would work really well. I'm sorry, I'm seeing like comments and stuff. Mr. Maug is saying, oh, the Steam controller is going on sale. I'm not going to pick up a Steam controller. I really want to. I love the button layout and control on my Steam Deck, but I have so much that I need to buy, and I'm keeping my money in reserve because I'm really afraid of how much Steam Frame is going to cost. So unfortunately, Steam isn't getting any of my money for the controller. I really want one, but I'm not going to spend money on that because I want to buy their really fancy VR headset. Let's see. Ooh, side question. What smartwatch are you rocking? I'm basically living in the OnePlus watch. This is the OnePlus Watch 3. I love it. It's like 4 days of my use of battery life, fitness tracking, notifications. I think it looks nice. I got a couple bands for it, but I mostly stick with the green band. I really haven't found any since Mobvoi is out of the market. I used to switch back and forth between the OnePlus watches and the Mobvoi more rugged multi-day watch. I might actually fire this up just for nostalgia's sake. I really miss the dual screen on the Mobvoi, the TicWatch. But most of the time now I'm just in the OnePlus watch. Samsung, Apple, Google, they can't figure out how to give us more than a day of battery life on a regular sized watch. And their Ultras are still half the battery life of this OnePlus watch in normal mode. People will say, like, oh, I can take my Samsung Ultra and put it into power saver mode and it'll last like 3 whole days. Yeah, this lasts 4 to 5 in normal smartwatch mode. Then, if I turn it into power saver mode, it's still a completely full-featured fitness tracker that'll last for like 2 weeks. So miss me with the Galaxy Watch, and I hate the Galaxy Watch Ultra and the Apple Watch Ultra aesthetic. They look so tacky. They look so, I'm a nerd trying to look hardcore. They don't look like actual rugged watches. You want an actual rugged do stuff watch, I don't know, go get a Garmin. That's a proper big boy watch. Not the, it's an Apple Watch Ultra Pro. It's got a bigger square casing on it. Looks so dumb. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't breathe. It looks so stupid. Sorry. I'm being really snarky today. I should probably lighten up a bit. It's all right. You guys are having a great conversation here without me, and I'm kind of missing it. But I got to scroll through this. Oh, and hey, everybody, got to say hey to Kathy, my Aunt Kathy. Love Mondays listening to you. Like that you have a green band for your watch. That's the Irish in you. You are amazing, our wonderful nephew. Love you, Aunt Kathy. Thanks for dropping by. And Mr. Maug, I got complimented on my OnePlus Watch 3 today. There was the secretary at my daughter's school was like, "Oh, that's kind of a cool watch." I was like, "Oh yeah, thanks. I like the circle." It was just a lovely little like, oh. Those little moments, I miss like old school analog timepieces. Like I used to have a whole collection of like inexpensive but kind of nice looking watches, and you just like, oh hey, that's a cool watch. You just have those kinds of chats. In a world of Apple watches and like Fitbits, like just sort of generic square tech lump on your wrist. It is just kind of nice. It's like, oh, it's a circle. It's built better than a Pixel watch. Yeah, Michael C2, that really bummed me out. TicWatch didn't just stop making watches, they nuked all of their storefronts for even their existing stock. Like, just overnight, they were gone. Unfortunately, they kept getting shuffled out. The reason why Android Wear exists in the way that it is today is because of Tic. The original TicWatch introduced this swiping panel navigation, and they were funded by Google to experiment with the original Android Wear. Mobvoi was the company that gave us the aesthetic that we use, the skin and control and aesthetic that we use today. And then Google turned that and to court Samsung to make sure Samsung wasn't going to keep doing Tizen and their own accessories, and they wanted Samsung on board. They gave Samsung preferential treatment to all of the early access to software. Samsung brought their watches over, and actually I think their watches are selling worse than before the Galaxy watches were running different software. Someone will have to do the numbers on that. I really can't track down that information, but it looks to me like, or if they're not doing worse, at least they're not top tier. And I think it's hilarious because Google will get these headlines like, oh yeah, Google is now one of the top sellers of wearables because they bought Fitbit and now they're running Fitbit into the ground. My family members who are on Fitbits mostly are looking for alternatives. A few of them seem to stick with Fitbit because they're familiar with it, but like, I think my mom is now on a OnePlus. Marie gave up her Pixel watch after using a Fitbit, and now she's on the smaller OnePlus watch. It's when you actually get to see this stuff and play with it, you kind of realize like, man, like Google and Apple and Samsung really aren't giving us their best. This stuff isn't that good. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. I'm an old, and I was around before the invention of the internet. I was online on ARPANET modems before the internet was a thing. So I remember the browser wars, and I am sad to see that ask.com is finally pulling the plug. So if you go to www.ask.com, you'll get this page popping up on your screen that says, every great search must come to an end. As IAC continues to sharpen its focus, we have made the decision to discontinue our search business, which includes ask.com. After 25 years of answering the world's questions, ask.com officially closed on May 1st, 2026. Jeeves' spirit endures. You know, there was that cute era where you had all of these different competing options for trying to organize information on the internet. I can't remember the last time I checked Ask Jeeves or ask.com. Like, it's not like I'm sad like, oh, this is a service I really use. I'm sad because it's just a little bit of nostalgia. I'm amazed that it was still around in any kind of capacity. It looked like it went through that train wreck that so many platform services went through, if it was AOL or Yahoo, ask.com, that, they got bought out by this company, they became another product, they tried to diversify, they tried to scale back, they did layoffs, they did hirings, another venture capitalist bought them, they, became a part of a portfolio, and eventually they all just kind of fall apart. It just makes me kind of sad. Like, there was an era of the internet where it was exciting, nerdy exciting to try out, like, oh, there's like a new search engine and you can and look, it's got like this homepage and you can find links and art. Oh, isn't this so cool? And now we're just totally burnt out on that kind of stuff. So again, I don't know if anyone was using Ask, but it's just one of those things. It was a fond memory of of a bygone era. Yeah, it sucks. Oh, IAC sucks. It dropped College Humor in 2020. I don't even know who IAC is. I wasn't really paying attention. Let's see. And then Oh, I don't know what Michael's talking about there. Command control device. In before YouTubers start making videos about how great IAC was in 2032. Don't we just miss it, guys? You know, I know we were criticizing it a whole bunch, but don't we just miss it? Um, we got a pair of stories from Mac Rumors here because I talked about rumors and leaks, and I'm not big on covering these kinds of stories, but it's negative for Apple on a Mac rumor site. So because I'm snarky and pissy and you know absolutely biased in my coverage, we had to cover these because one of these is not surprising at all, and the other one is kind of an interesting idea. So the first up is this is from Julie Clover over at Mac Rumors. Apple has given up on the Vision Pro after the M5 refresh flop. Pah. M5 refresh flop. Apple has all but given up on the Vision Pro after the M5 model failed to revitalize interest in the device. Mac Rumors has learned. Apple updated the Vision Pro with a faster M5 chip and a more comfortable band in October, but there were no other hardware changes and consumers still weren't interested. So there's a lot of this like just summarization. Vision Pro has been criticized for its high price tag and its uncomfortable weight. The device is over 1.3 pounds, and even with the more comfortable dual knit band that Apple added to redistribute weight, it continues to be hard to wear for long periods of time. Now, remember, when the Vision Pro first launched, people were saying like, oh, and it makes sense, you can't have the battery in the headset. That would have made it even heavier. So you have the soap on a rope battery, which is way less convenient, but you know, you get the other headband and it's not that bad. All the people that were excusing it. Now it's just common knowledge because it's not popular, right? There's not a lot of traffic on Vision Pro. There aren't a ton of videos about Vision Pro. It didn't revolutionize anything. So now it's okay to quietly mention, oh yeah, it was really uncomfortable to wear. When all of those influencers were getting invited to Apple events, oh, this was going to be the future, right, guys? I had people arguing with me on social media, on Twitter, friends of mine who should have known better, accusing me of not wanting to be a futurist because I didn't appreciate all of the amazosity of the Vision Pro and I was critical of it and pointing out how it's barely an evolution over dev kits like Microsoft HoloLens. And people accusing me of like not wanting to be interested in future technologies. At the same time, all of these editorials from outlets saying, "Oh, only Apple can save VR. Only Apple." And it spurred this whole side quest where even like the Oculus was trying to be not a VR headset, but like a whole immersive augmented reality platform for engaging with real world and data, which was ruthlessly stupid. So Vision Pro is a flop, and now we can finally say some of this very quietly. Vision Pro has been unpopular since it first launched. All of those people just telling me I was a hater, and now Mac Rumors is here. Oh yeah, it was always unpopular. We always knew it wasn't going to be popular. All the people that were hyping it, we knew they were going to be wrong. We couldn't say it at the time when it was brand new and everyone was making hype videos about it. But now, oh yeah, but now we know. See, they're already rewriting like the history of all of this. This is incredible. Only about 600,000 units sold in total. Insider sources told Mac Rumors that Apple has received an unusually high percentage of returns, far exceeding any other modern Apple product. Apple has apparently stopped work on the Vision Pro, and the Vision Pro team has been redistributed to other teams within Apple. Then later in the article, instead of continuing to experiment with virtual reality, Apple is working on smart glasses that will eventually incorporate augmented reality capabilities. But the first version will be similar to the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses with AI and no integrated display. So, I gotta point out, it's like, how long ago was it? I've got to pull this up. I have to look on this other computer here. Hype. In 2023, I published a video called Apple Tech Journalism and a Decade of Out of Control Hype. The thumbnail is that launch image of the Vision Pro, the African American woman wearing the Vision Pro. Now, most people in the comments agreed with me, but I got a lot of tangential pushback on social media because I dared to point out that the tech media has been hyping Apple glasses since the first announcement of Google Glass back in 2012. The first time we saw just a teaser video of it, that Google was gonna make a thing that you put on your face and can kind of give you notifications and has a camera, immediately, well, Apple was gonna do it better. Every year, we have a hype rumor cycle on Apple's gonna make glasses. Apple's gonna do it right. You all remember the glass holes from Google Glass and all those creepers who have cameras in their glasses, and oh, they're so gross. And we actually just had another article about how like Meta Ray-Ban glasses aren't selling that well either. I didn't put it in this week's run a show, but maybe I'll include it on the show notes. Like, the idea of cameras at eye level that can just surreptitiously record everything you do is really skeezy and gross. So of course it came from Mark Zuckerberg. Of course Google really didn't do it well. Every cycle this comes back. If you search for Apple glasses on YouTube, you have a never-ending scroll of videos and hype and coverage and how Apple's gonna do it right, and Apple can do AR. And you know, the problem is when you get other glasses, they're just so bulky and clumsy, and Apple's gonna give us wire-thin frames with all-day battery life and magical Terminator vision. And oh, and Apple can save VR, and they're gonna do it all. And they still haven't released a regular looking pair of glasses, and now they're not even going to do optical. The optical solution is not that hard. These are my Evan Realities. I'm not going to buy the Gen 2 Evan Realities, but these are like regular normal looking glasses. A little boutique side company made these, and they're really nice. They're really well built. They're polished. They've got an incredible little hinge system. They've got decent battery life. They have binocular waveguide optics that give me clear information readout. I can have a real-time map of my surroundings, get turn-by-turn notifications. I can do voice searches and stupid AI stuff, but you can also do near real-time translation when someone's talking to you. These exist now. This is a real thing. I don't really love the company's pivot to doing more AI on your face, but the hardware here is real and practical and lightweight and weighs just a touch more than regular glasses because you have these little batteries that live behind your ears. What is holding up Apple? How can you call Apple a market leader when their first solution in augmented spatial computing, their stupid brand names for mixed reality, their first solution is basically a glorified dev kit VR headset without controllers. Good job there, Apple. You really nailed the target market for VR. This is real. You can pick up a dev kit for the Vuzix Z100. I use those a bunch. There are waveguide optics that you can put on your face right now. There are projector systems like the Halliday glasses. These things are real. And we're still, what is this, 14 years after the announcement of Google Glass, we're still giving Apple unlimited runway, unlimited hype, unlimited consideration for a device that actually consumers aren't flocking to. And when we put stuff on their face, Apple is going to be years behind all of the other companies that have actively been experimenting with computer on your face. And we're still, oh, you know, instead of continuing with virtual reality, that Apple was supposed to save VR. Remember all of those headlines. Remember all of those stories. Apple's working on smart glasses that will eventually incorporate augmented reality. Cool. I mean, so is Rokid. So is X-Real. So is Ray Neo. You want like color rich augmented reality glasses, you can go get the Ray Neo X2. I think they look a little dorky, but the compute that's in them, that's exactly what they're talking about. I think you want a heads-up display. They're trying to sell you that you want AI and rich augmented reality, and I think you just want information at up at eye level. You want good little applets that can do things like translate, that can give you turn-by-turn notifications, that can give you alerts and alarms and reminders. Maybe a little applet that you can use to write a list. I can say a whole bunch of things to my Evan realities, and it'll give me a little bullet point list for when I go shopping. And then I've got my shopping list up at eye level when I'm walking around Trader Joe's and I'm getting distracted because they had a sale on pot stickers. I maybe bought 3 bags of pot stickers at Trader Joe's yesterday. Don't judge me; they're delicious. So make sure we give Apple the consideration and we ignore that this is a market that already exists, and 14 years with nothing to show for all of this coverage. Eventually, they're going to make some audio glasses. I have. Are they still over here? I don't know if they're still over here. This is terrible podcasting. I should have thought about this when I was doing my cranky rant. Oh, yeah, they're right here. Like 5 years ago, I got these. I don't even know if the battery still charges. They don't have cameras, but they have mics and speakers. And they're just regular glasses, and they connect to my phone, and I can listen to music, and I can listen to podcasts, and I can take phone calls on them, and I could tap on them to launch the voice assistant on my phone, and there's my AI. And I don't have to worry about like cameras and stuff, because cameras are skeezy when they don't have a clear identifying recording light or notification that people around you can see, so they can punch you in the face when you're doing stupid things like wearing cameras on your face when you go into like public restrooms, because that's gross. And of course that came from Mark Zuckerberg. Of course it did. So this has existed for a long time, and this is apparently what we're going to get from Apple. Oh, it's totally doing the AI. No, it's connected to your iPhone. Your iPhone is the computer and is a modem and is handling all that information. And you're just getting mics and speakers on your face. And we're letting influencers act like this is, wow, it's so cool. What I have like whole conversations with my Facebook AI on my face when I wear my Meta Ray-Bans. It just makes me want to vomit. It's so stupid. So congratulations, Apple. I'm so glad you killed your AI division, your AR division. Your virtual reality product was stupid. JGJ, has Apple ever broken the laws of physics? I don't recall. I'm not making this up. Go and search for Apple glasses and you will see people doing thumbnails of like wireframes. And they're gonna be full rich Terminator Vision, Robocop, AR. And you're like, that's impossible. But the solution for a pair of waveguides, just getting information up at eye level, is totally doable today. The Vuzix Z100 are monocular. They only do your right eye. But the battery life is like 3 days because of that. So it's not as vibrant an image when a notification pops up, but it's also easier to look through when you're talking to someone else. Like that's the whole thing about optical systems is you don't even know what you don't know about that experience. Every time I put glasses on someone else's face, I have slingshotted them 10 years into the future. This is the stuff I wear every day. And no one has had any kind of experience with it until they meet me. There is no accessible consumer education for electronics right now. They don't know that they didn't know that this was a thing. I'll put those cinema displays on someone's face, and it's like I've just magically teleported them to some far distant Star Trek future where I could watch a movie from my phone on an airplane on a movie theater size screen and not be all hunched up over my phone. I've sold so many cinema headsets to family and friends that travel. I really wish my affiliate links were generating more income because, man, like, You put it on someone's face and they don't even have the language to describe what the experience is like. And we're sitting here still giving Apple the runway. Maybe someday Apple will do it right, finally, because we know they will. All these other companies have been doing it wrong for years, except that they've been putting out products and really making things. And you could have been playing all this time. If you didn't jump on Google Glass, that's 14 years of you not having experienced some kind of heads-up display. I think that's kind of dumb. And if you've ever listened to the advice of Apple influencers telling you things like Apple will do it right, well, in this case, they absolutely have not. So frustrating. Lil Wani, wait, is that how you pronounce Evan Realities? I'm almost positive it's Even Realities, and I don't care. I said it once as Evan because I also say really obnoxious things like apricot and aunt. And it just sort of got clicked in my brain. So whenever I'm not thinking about it, I say Evan Realities. It's probably even, and I'm not motivated to change. You know. Oh, Ishmael. Wow, the cinema glasses experience is that good? I'm going to have to research a little more. I have videos, man. We've got 1080p, 120 frames per second, the newest Ray Neos. I like their image processing, HDR support, really good color. They've started doing things like you still don't have the widest peripheral vision. It does look like a screen out in space in front of you, but the brightness, the color, they've gotten really good, and they've gotten crazy inexpensive from where they started. Like you can shop sales on the Ray Neos and they're like $300. What portable monitor are you going to take with you on an airplane for HDR, for high brightness, for really crisp movie playback that's going to cost you $300, and then when you're done watching the movie you just fold it up and you put it in your shirt pocket? Like that doesn't exist. And then when you're on an airplane you just lean back. I just leaned back way farther than you can lean back on an airplane. I want you to look the next time you're on a flight, maybe you're on a bus, maybe you're on public transit, on a subway, and how many people are like looking down over their phones. And what you could do is lean back, relax the muscles in your neck, stare straight up, and see a movie theater sized presentation of what you're watching. Or like say you just want to scroll some TikToks. You can scroll on the screen without having to look at the screen because you're looking at a blown up vertical and it looks as good or better than what's on your screen. I'm telling you, again, I say things like this and people go like, oh yeah, but I mean like, oh yeah, I guess. I don't know, man. I will not get on an airplane without some movie glasses. Like it is so much better. Around the house, or like I'm still trying to chew through Marvel Cosmic Invasion. I only get like 15 minutes at night before I pass out. But like Marie went to sleep before I was ready to turn out all the lights and stuff, but I don't want to leave lights on and play my Steam Deck and it's making noise and stuff. So I popped on the glasses and I'm laying in bed playing Marvel Cosmic Invasion on this massive screen that's projected up towards my ceiling, and it's great. I really like it. It's really nice. So, I don't know. I feel like people should check them out. All right. The other Apple rumor that we caught, and this one is actually the one that I think is less likely, but kind of an interesting scenario here. So also written up over at Mac Rumors by Hartley Charlton, Apple reportedly questioning whether iPhone should drop MagSafe. The Weibo leaker known as Instant Digital says that when MagSafe was first introduced, the mood inside Apple was reportedly aggressive about its expansion. MagSafe for the iPhone was introduced with the iPhone 12, bringing a ring of magnets to the back of the device for snap-on charging and accessory attachment. The ecosystem has since expanded significantly, with dozens of third-party wallets, cases, stands, and chargers built around the standard. Of course, Also got to acknowledge, Apple did help here. Apple usually takes a standard and breaks it so that only their phones can use pieces of that standard. They did that with Wi-Fi, they did that with Bluetooth, they did that with USB. They are in the business of locking you in by breaking interoperability with other computers and phones and tablets and accessories. Apple didn't do this with MagSafe. They contributed to the standard of Qi charging, and Qi 2 piggybacks on the work that Apple did with magnets to help coils line up for wireless charging. I think we should give Apple some kudos there. But, moving on in this article, sorry, excuse me. Now, Instant Digital claims that confidence around MagSafe has given way to uncertainty. The leaker says Apple is weighing the costs of including MagSafe magnets in the iPhone against the strength of the accessory ecosystem that has grown up around the future, though the nature of the debate and what any change might look like remains unclear. So here's the problem. I'm editorializing on top of this leak, on top of this rumor. When Apple came out with Lightning as a connector, we had the dock connector and then we went down to the little Lightning connector. Apple had a USB variant that was unique to their products, their phones, their tablets, their accessories, their mice, their keyboards. Like, they had control over this spec. Only Apple could allow other manufacturers to use that connector. It wasn't USB, it was Lightning. And Apple made incredible amounts of money on the certification and licensing of the Lightning connector. Lightning existed far longer than it should have as USB-C was introduced because Apple was making too much money on licensing it. I still get accessories today, like little microphone systems, that the manufacturers feel they need to include a Lightning adapter. That is still money that is going to Apple to license the Lightning connector spec built into the price of your wireless microphone kit. And if you don't want that adapter, it kind of sucks, but pennies of that are a part of the price of what you paid for this microphone. It's probably more than pennies. It's Apple. That's really spendy. So you try to think. USB-C is kind of an open standard, right? So when 2020 rolls around and we're starting to hear about MagSafe returning to laptops and MagSafe is going to be on an iPhone, well, it's not MagSafe like we had on MacBooks back in the day. It's this new wireless charging solution because now, instead of a USB-C cable, because USB-C cables are cheap, now we can sell you a much more expensive wireless charging pad. Look at how much more material and more coils and the boot and the connector, and you'd still need to buy a charging brick. Apple had another avenue for printing money. I am critically surprised that Apple didn't move either an iPhone E or an iPhone Air into being a completely sealed portless phone. Because I really thought they were going to run with MagSafe as the replacement for all of your charging and accessory needs. I'm actually kind of surprised that that didn't happen. I think in part they just got so much pushback from the EU over USB-C that they got a little anxious about making a completely sealed iPhone at a time where the EU was saying you have to have this charge. Every gadget now needs to support this charger. There's just another story that was actually shared on the Discord. Now all laptops moving forward should charge over USB-C. Getting rid of proprietary connectors, barrel connectors, multi-pin connectors. I'm for it. I'm here for it. Let's go. You want to include another magnetic charger? Okay, that's what my Surface uses. I don't love it, but I know anywhere I go, I can plug in a USB-C cable and charge up my Surface Laptop 7. So Apple sees the writing on the wall. MagSafe is not going to be the cash cow that Lightning was. So then they decide, well, okay, we're not really going to make a ton of money on this, but we can define the standard. And so they allow for some of their intellectual property to be incorporated into the spec of Qi 2. And now every manufacturer is looking at cloning the iPhone because the magnets on the back of the device will line up with Apple accessories. But if you're making the devices that line up with Apple accessories, so for example, here's my Pixel 10, and I have a little wireless cooler. Well, it's not a wireless cooler, it's a magnetic cooler. It's a thermoelectric cooler, a little Peltier cooler. You plug this in and it takes heat out of the back of the phone and it lines up on the magnets that support other accessories. Well, this is not MagSafe, but I could take this cooler and put it on an iPhone 17. And because we've defined this circle, and the circle is now pretty consistent across multiple manufacturers, and even Samsung is probably going to change the camera bar on the next Galaxy Ultra just so it fits Apple accessories better, but this has the flip side of making it more, it's easier to put other accessories on iPhones. You don't need to license MagSafe to make a circle of magnets that sticks on the back of an iPhone. So it's not like Lightning, they can't make as much money on it. So this rumor, I feel, has some potential that maybe, now that you've gotten a certain subset of consumers hooked on wireless charging pads, and maybe it's a vehicle dock, and you pop the phone onto a dock in your car. Well, what if you took out the magnets in the phone? That would save you a little money, and then they'd have to buy a more expensive case anyway. In fact, for MagSafe to work the way that it does, you need magnets in the case in addition to being in the phone regardless. So we recommend you put cases on your phones. What if we just took the magnets out of the phone? That would save us money, and it would still keep accessory sales going. That's how Apple operates now. It's not really what's the best experience for the consumer. It's how do we make the most money on this business practice, and we've already kind of sold out Qi 2, so now anyone can make an accessory. Okay, maybe it's time we got out of MagSafe. And the reason why this is coming up is because Apple is going to deliver their first folding phone. So just like the iPhone 16e, which didn't have MagSafe magnets, I would not be surprised if an iPhone Fold or an iPad mini Fold or an iPhone Ultra, whatever they're going to call it, shows up without magnets. Maybe it does have a wireless charging coil built in, but if they're trying to make it as thin as they possibly can, it honestly might be difficult to put in magnets, and especially magnets strong enough to support the weight of a foldable. Foldable being a little beefier, a little thicker, and often asymmetrical. You can't put the magnets right in the middle of the foldable. You have to put them to one panel or the other. That could be problematic. So it's my hypothesis that we're going to see this folding iPhone, and because it's a folding iPhone and it's so thin, don't worry, we're still supporting all these things, and we're going to have a whole series of new accessories for this exciting new, no one's ever made a folding device like this before, and Apple's going to have all this covered for you. And every single outlet is going to trip over themselves to explain how it's not a problem that Apple won't have magnets or MagSafe in the foldable. You remember the OnePlus Open, the folding phone from OnePlus, didn't have wireless charging, but it did have real cabled fast charging, had excellent battery life, and it was, for its time, it was a pretty thin foldable, but they were working on a new hinge assembly, and OnePlus made a calculated decision that it was better to have the real fast charging than to try and make the rear casing a little thicker to include wireless charging coils, and that was a deal breaker for a lot of techies out there. How could you even release a premium flagship folding phone in this year that didn't have wireless charging? And I guarantee you, anyone who besmirched the OnePlus Open, if the new iPhone doesn't have proper MagSafe support, will be tripping over themselves. I'm calling it now. they'll excuse it. They'll look you in the eye through their camera and say, well, but, I mean, guys, I mean, realistically, you wouldn't want it to be thicker, right? So, I mean, Apple had to make like a compromise here, but what you're getting is so much better and blah, 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 blah. But of course, when OnePlus put out one of the best foldables that's ever been sold in North America, well, can't have that. I mean, fast charging, that's not good enough. I need really slow charging that makes me put the thing down and I can't use it while it's charging and it makes the battery hot. So, you know, I'm calling it now. Apple shill's gonna shill so hard. If an iPhone foldable shows up without MagSafe magnets, you guys, you just have unrealistic expectations. I mean, Apple can't do everything. It's not magic. They're going to excuse it so hard. You know. Not only are they going to give Apple a pass, they're going to ignore every criticism they've given of any other product that omitted a feature like that. And they're going to make it sound like it was some really important business decision or consumer benefit. Oh, you guys, I mean, it's already going to be really expensive. Did you want it to be even more expensive just to have the magnets? And then you're going to have a whole bunch of those lazy engagement questions. But what do you think? Do you think it is good that Apple is charging you less for an iPhone Ultra? Do you think it would be good if Apple had to charge you more for magnets? But what do you think? Leave a comment under this video. I'm trying to do like the Erica Kirk eyes whenever I do that influencer lazy engagement bait question. I don't think I've nailed it yet. AI makes your brain shrink. Juan is as angry at Apple shills as my wisdom tooth is towards me right now. I'm wisdom tooth angry. I feel like I should own that. I think that's fair. WX Romer, Apple shill would be a great documentary. But I mean, like, they tell you every single time. Look at the years of unearned praise, consideration, excuses, and it's because Apple has generational, incredible marketing efforts. The Tim Cook era was ruthlessly political, and they made money hand over fist by often hurting their most loyal customers. But you don't have an actual pushback against Apple's business practices. Any company, or excuse me, any media outlet that criticizes them too hard, well, Apple just chooses not to do business with them anymore. You don't need to be invited to events. We really want to make sure that we're inviting people that, sort of appreciate what we're doing, and they're controlling the narrative. And they can keep their boot on every media outlet's neck. Like, look at the Wall Street Journal, all the puff pieces they've done with Craig Federici. Federici. I never know how to pronounce his name. So, it's great. JGJ, no MagSafe in exchange for Touch ID? No, I am stoked to see that they'll probably have to return to Touch ID. I think that's cool. I think that's good. I think we should have had products that could do both. Like the LG G8 that tech influencers hammered because it had that fun gimmick of hand controls, like you could float your hand and control things on the phone, and it was really easy to do that, and anyone who pretended like it was hard to do was a blithering idiot. I mean, really bad at tech, stupid, fundamentally probably couldn't dress themselves in the morning and never brush their own teeth because that gesture system was cake. I could boot up my G8 now and just start doing it, even though I haven't used that phone as a daily driver in years. But the whole point behind that technology was to have secure face unlock and biometric fingerprint security on the same device. And LG just found another fun little gimmicky thing to do with the hardware that was actually security hardware. And all those influencers went out of there, oh, LG, I mean, they always do such dumb gimmicks. Like having both face unlock and fingerprint unlock on the same device. So yeah, it's cool that the iPhone Ultra is probably going to get Touch ID back. It should have both. I want touch and face ID for the people that want different solutions for controlling the security on their devices. Ta-da! All right. All right, I got to take a breath. Just another little news tidbit as we kind of see what's happening with one of my favorite brands. OnePlus is going through some big architectural changes. Now it seems like OnePlus and Realme are going to merge. This is written up by Ben Shun over at 9 to 5 Google. So this is the headline. OnePlus has reportedly been merged with Realme as the downward spiral continues. Now, I wrote an editorial, What If OnePlus Left the Smartphone Market? And I detailed some of my thoughts on a brand I've really come to like as they've matured, but has also sort of shown over the last couple of years that they are, in essence, an offshoot of another manufacturer that we like. You know, Oppo makes devices, and they kind of use their parts bin to make different categories of phones. OnePlus is a label that sells well in some areas. Realme is a label that sells well in some areas. But ultimately, you start competing against yourself. So if OnePlus and Oppo are both being sold in Europe, does it make sense to kind of duplicate those efforts? The marketing, the licensing, the regulatory efforts. Do you scale that back and just put one nicer phone into that market? Instead of a OnePlus 16, we could just roll with an Oppo Find X, right? And it wouldn't be a difficult ad campaign to say, oh, you know, the OnePlus that you've always loved lives on in the Oppo. There's just a few less letters on the side of the box. OP to OP, right? So the Realme thing is kind of interesting to me, not because they've merged and, oh, OnePlus is going to be destroyed and they're going to go away. Pete Lau, the CEO of OnePlus, is the person who's going to be in charge of the merged Realme OnePlus project. So, in my opinion, that's actually pretty good news for OnePlus fans. Maybe your phone will have a Realme label on the side of the box, but the continuity of device that OnePlus delivered will probably live on with Pete being in charge of the direction of this merged entity that's OnePlus and Realme. If we were concerned about what a OnePlus is and wanted to see that continue, then to me it's actually kind of a benefit that they're merging their support, they're merging their distribution, and they're combining their two sub-brands. Oppo is combining their two sub-brands, and yeah, maybe we don't get the label on the side of the box, but isn't that still pretty much the same phone? If you pick up a Find X9, not a Find X9 Ultra, because I did get hands-on with the Find X9 Ultra, and thanks to my buddy TK Bay for letting me just kind of steal his for an afternoon, just to shoot some really pretty photos of flowers and stuff. If you take a Find X9 and you compare it to a OnePlus 15, they're exceedingly similar devices. They're very similar. Why are we upset about a company looking at those products and saying, why are we making these tiny iterative permutations? Why don't we streamline some of this? And it's still basically the same phone. In fact, it might be better because you're streamlining costs, manufacturing, distribution, licensing, regulatory policy, support, and you're just kind of putting it all under one umbrella. I feel like that's actually kind of a good thing. So yes, it's sad that I don't get, oh, it's way down there. I don't get the big chunky red box. Like if you look right over my head, oh, why can't I do this mirror image? There we go, right there. There's my OnePlus 15 box right up there on my shelf. That was way too hard for me to line up my finger in the mirror image of my podcast. There's my OnePlus 15 box. It's sad I'm not going to get big red box anymore. Is that what you're really upset about? if you liked the OnePlus phones, are you really upset that the label on the box isn't going to say ONEPLUS? But what if you got a Find X9 Pro instead at roughly the same price or in a similar tier? I'd rather have that. What if instead you caught like some of that really good like flagship killer kind of manufacturing? So instead of a OnePlus 15R, you got a Realme. Oh no, it's called a Realme. I the downward spiral and the OnePlus is dead. Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean, techies are real good reporting on this stuff. Man, we are almost to 11, and I really didn't want this podcast to go long. Quick little news bit. I've been a big fan of the GameSir Game Hub app. There is now a beta of the GameSir Game Hub app. This is written up by Habib Onowole over at Notebook Check. I almost said GSM Arena. Over at Notebook Check, GameSir has just put out a beta for the Game Hub app. The Game Hub app allows you to log into your Steam account and install PC games on Android devices. And it uses very similar emulation to something like Winlator, if you like to tinker with PC emulation. So you can play real PC games on your Android phone. The cool thing for this beta, and I just installed it on my OnePlus 15. I haven't had a chance to dig into it too hard, but now we have support for the Epic Game Store. So now, just like with Steam, I can go to my Steam account, install games directly from there. Now I can also go to my Epic Game Store account because, like all of you, I'm sure all of you are getting your free Epic game every week. So for having spent no money, I'm sure you, like me, have tons of games on Epic. I don't think I can pull it up right now. I have like hundreds of games through the Epic Game Store, and I think I've bought like 3. Like it was the only way I could get Alan Wake 2. So I have Alan Wake 2. I need to see if I can play Alan Wake 2 on a phone or a tablet. That is now going to be the experiment that I try when I finally fire up. I installed the beta. I logged into my Epic account. I haven't installed anything yet. Man, that would be wild if I could play Alan Wake 2 on a phone. We're going to see if that works. Expect a short or an article or maybe a Patreon post from me in the next day or two to see if Alan Wake 2 plays on Android. You should definitely check it out. If you're into gaming at all, we are now getting to a point where I would say a Snapdragon 8 Elite from last year, and kind of in the ballpark of like a Dimensity 9400, you're probably outpacing Steam Deck, even considering that you've got to emulate that performance. But you're playing a real PC game on a mobile, and you're not tinkering or hacking. You just install it, and the Game Hub app installs all the emulation stuff you need, and then you just play the game. Takes a little longer than installing an app from Google Play, but it seems to work. So, yeah, Lil Wani, Alan Wake 2 is amazing. I liked it a lot. It was very good. I want to see if I can play it on a phone. This is another quickie. I did a first look video on the Vivo X300 FE. It's an interesting little solution as like this kind of premium mid-ranger, but we're now getting costs, and I want to hear in the chat real quick before we move on to the Pixel 11 leaks. They have a special camera kit. So it's the smartphone, a regular bumper case, a special camera case, the 200mm telephoto lens adapter, a 90-watt flash charger, and a case for the telephoto lens, which will cost about 1,200 euro, which for an FE phone is a little spendy. And I'm just curious, there's so many of these like camera-centric phones out there. I mentioned in my first look video for the X300 FE, there is actually kind of a pain point when you compare the FE as a lower tier device against a phone like the Vivo X300. Not the 300 Pro, not the 300 Ultra, but X300 FE to X300. And the cameras on the X300 are actually a little bit better than on the FE. But the 300 doesn't seem to have the same kind of support for these accessories like this big telephoto lens adapter. $1,200 is a lot. And for that to be a very good camera-centric upper mid-ranger phone and a telephoto lens, I'm struggling to properly conceptualize the costs. I have been living out of the X300 Ultra for the last couple weeks, and this is a phone that is very expensive when you put the whole camera kit together. Depending on market, could be like a $2,000 product, right? But I spend $2,000 on this, and it is legitimately capable of displacing thousands of dollars of camera hardware when I'm out and about. And if I want to put a 400 millimeter lens on my mirrorless camera, that's not something that can fit in a pants pocket. But if I put a 400 millimeter equivalent lens on this phone, it fits in a pants pocket. I can walk around with a phone, and crazy long optical telephoto lenses, and the images look really good. Like, I shared that photo of Lex, down in her catcher's crouch, just as she's caught the ball in her mitt, and she's got a knee that's like digging into the dirt. And it's this great action photo that I took past third base. So I was past third base on the foul line with the 400 millimeter adapter, and that's an awesome action shot. And if I had done that with my mirrorless, that camera and lens would have been huge, and I wouldn't have been able to do that handheld. I would have needed to get low on like a monopod to get a similar shot. So I really appreciate all of the photography expertise and all of the really good image capture considerations that Vivo brings to the table. But I do have, I could have sworn I had my FE here in front of me. So here's my X300. Here's my X200 FE. We're gonna do the whole collection of the last 2 years of Vivo. Where did that phone go? Oh, I almost dropped the 200 Pro. Yeah, I don't know what happened to my X300 FE. Oh wait, no, did I find it? Yeah, here it is. So here's the FE, here's the last FE, and here's the 300. And if you're not gonna attach lenses and things, then yeah, $1,200 or 1,200 euro is a bridge too far. But just thinking, like, you can pick up an X300 on sale for less than the launch price of the FE without the telephoto lens. I just think we're kind of in a weird spot where Vivo overlaps on so many of their products right now that it's kind of hard to make good purchasing recommendations for every product that they offer now. Now I've got to very carefully put all of these phones back on my desk so that I don't have like a domino cascade of thousands of dollars worth of phone. Let me take one more drink of coffee and then let's talk some Pixel. Woo woo Pixel. Oh yeah. Oh, actually, that's kind of fun. Command and control device. I would pick the X300 FE over any Pixel at that $1,200 euro price. But given any other option, I would save some cash and get the Realme GT8 Pro instead. The camera tech isn't terribly dissimilar from like the iQOO either. So we definitely run into these Venn diagram overlaps. You could go with an iQOO, you could go with an FE, you could go with a OnePlus, you could get a non-pro version of a phone. All of these things get really, really close, and then you can take a step down and go like Vivo V series. And the current Vivo V70 is very similar to the X200 FE. So your camera capabilities are close, but you might save like 200 or 300 euro. So do you need the top of the line SoC? And do you need the last little bits of like the most professional grade aspects of the Vivo camera app? And if you don't, that could be an so again, it's really hard for me to kind of like place these things now because it's like $20 or 20 euro increments completely change the model of phone. And so, okay, well, if you spend 20 more euro here, but if you spend 100 more euro, it's similar, but then this is better. But if you care about that, then you really want to step up. But if you don't care about that, you should definitely save the cash. And it could take an hour to just do all of the Vivo permutations, let alone other brands and companies like iQOO and OnePlus and Realme and all of the other competitors around that price. Like put a Poco in there, and now it's just like, man, this is way too complicated. So apparently there have been even more leaks on the Pixel 11. What was shared on the Discord originally. Let me see if I can pull this up. I apologize because I did not grab the names. People were sharing links. Command control device. Thank you, because you were one of the ones who added the link on the Epic Game Store. Walking Black Bear was chatting up the OnePlus merger announcement. Command control device also contributed the Ars Technica story about deepfake nudes. There was a story about Vine returning, and I just couldn't bring myself to talk about Vine because I hated Vine and I thought Vine was stupid. Where did this go? I am so sorry. I really need to start putting together in the show notes. Yeah, it was command control device. Oh, so this is the GSM Arena article. And what we're getting is sort of an early look at what this chip might look like. And apparently there have been additional leaks, just whatever the Pixel 11 series is going to be. Pixel 11, Pixel 11 Pro, Pro XL. This looks horrifically underwhelming. And I'm very anxious about Google's strategy. Here is my Pixel 10 Pro XL. I bought this phone right at launch. There was a decent trade-in offer for my Pixel 8 Pro. So I traded that in to get some money off of this phone. This is the Pixel I've lived in the least of any Pixel that's been launched. So much so that when I'm really digging into Pixel stuff, I'm actually using my Pixel 9 Pro XL more than I'm using my Pixel 10. So we were correct when this phone launched. This was the first phone that we were finally getting away from Samsung built chips, and the CPU performance is a little better on the Pixel 10 Pro than the Pixel 9 Pro. The radio management is a little better on the Pixel 10 Pro than the Pixel 9 Pro. But the GPU performance is hot garbage. So we lost the Mali GPU in the Pixel 9, and we're going with a cheaper Power VR. This is a company that Apple abandoned years ago to make the graphics compute for the Pixel 10. That trade-off has made this so much less fun and useful a device for me that I'm going back a generation for like what I'm running my beta. I gotta be really careful. I'm about to drop like 15 phones on the floor. I keep going back through older phones to kind of like bring this kind of stuff up and talk about it. And did I put this over here? There's my Pixel 7, which I'm using as a test device. I can't find my Pixel 9 Pro. Oh, nope. No, that's not it. I had it right here, I swear. This is really annoying. I need to reorganize this whole desk setup. Oh, there it is. I was looking for the red case. It's in the green case. the case that matches my OnePlus watch, because I don't use the Pixel watch because the Pixel watch is kind of junk compared to the OnePlus watch. So my Pixel 9 Pro, you see how I don't even have a case on my Pixel 10 Pro because I don't use this phone. I have a case on my Pixel 9 Pro, and I have a really nice case on my Pixel 9 Pro because I'm still inclined to pick this up over the Pixel 10 Pro. So, we've got a leak. It seems like Google is jumping on the newest iteration of ARM CPU cores. This is going to get a little nerdy, but the core configuration still looks old compared to what MediaTek and Qualcomm are doing. So this is written up by Siddharth over at GSM Arena. Pixel 11's Tensor G6 chipset specs revealed in leak. So what it looks like is we're gonna have one really big ARM C1 Ultra core, and then we're gonna get 6 C1 Pro cores. So that's kind of meh. When we fire up, for example, I do all of my video editing on my phone in LumaFusion. I love LumaFusion. I can shoot these little snippets of video, drop it right into a timeline on my phone, and the phones that are fastest at processing that video, for whatever reason, are the phones that have multiple big cores. LumaFusion was originally designed for the iPhone, and the iPhone has 2 big CPU cores, and then I think it's 4 smaller efficiency cores. The Dimensity 9400, 4 big X cores, 4 medium-sized, what used to be the big cores, but 4 medium-sized A720 cores. The newest Snapdragon, 2 really big, powerful cores, and then, is it 6? I think it's an octa-core. It's 6 medium clock speed cores. When you throw a lot of work at a phone and you want it to accomplish that task most efficiently, it's good to have the big cores so that the phone can get that task done faster and then recover, fall back into a rest state faster. MediaTek, I think, actually still has the best design on this. So they're not using the Pro cores. There's an in-between premium core on the Dimensity 9500. So it's 1 biggest, 3 really big, 4 medium. And Google is going with the oldest version of this. We used to only do 1 really big fast core, and then we would have some medium cores and then some tiny little efficiency cores. So Google is getting rid of the little efficiency cores, but they're basically just going 1 big 7 or 1 big 6 medium or something like that. It's like a 7-core CPU design. That's not great. That's an older CPU configuration. It's a less expensive CPU configuration because you're not paying for multiple of the biggest cores. But that means already this will not perform as well as a Dimensity 9500, and I doubt it's going to catch or scale with the CPU performance on the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. Man, so many different model numbers, and I hate the way that Qualcomm names their products. Your Pixel 11, when it launches at the end of this year, will still probably underperform on the CPU than last year's Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 Elite, or 8 Elite, probably still underperform against a Dimensity 9400, and we're going to be seeing the next iteration of Qualcomm and MediaTek chips at the end of this year, which means the CPU performance on the Tensor coming up will likely get bigger benchmark scores from Geekbench and Antutu. It'll close the gap on current phones released this year, at the beginning of this year, but it's still technically going to be about 2 generations behind in CPU compute. And then Google is going to stick with this Power VR GPU. So, I mean, it's not the exact same GPU that's in the Pixel 10, but this is not looking good. So many people will say or defend the Pixel and say things like, well, I don't care if my phone can't play games. And you might not. I mean, honestly, you might not. But I do run into parents who, in an effort to prevent their kids from just having completely unfettered access to data connected devices, kid wants to play a game and mom or dad hands over their phone and the kid can play a game on their phone, and there's some monitoring of the kid's behavior. Well, Pixel's going to be the most expensive performer in this premium space with the absolute worst performance for that kind of entertainment. Okay? Moving forward, Android, as we get new skins, new graphical elements, new animation engines, that does tap resources like the GPU on your phone. Which means we're going to be in a weird holding pattern where the performance of the GPU on the Pixel 10 is like multiple generations old. This isn't like, oh, it underperforms a little, but you probably won't notice. This is like if you went and got, I want to try and put numbers into perspective here. It's like you went 4 or 5 years back in terms of graphics. Just raw horsepower. Obviously, there are little bits on the chip that help it do other things, and you can have little co-processors and little ISPs. All that stuff is definitely better for it to be able to process images and record video and do the AI, the NPU, and all that nonsense. But the actual just raw horsepower of the GPU kind of looks like, I think, something that we would have gotten back in like 2021. That's how far back we're going. So that's weird though, because then anything that we do moving forward to future-proof Android has to take into account a significant reduction in graphics performance from the company that makes Android. Their own hardware is going to be a limit for how far you can push animations, transitions, and anything that might tax the GPU on your phone. So Android could find itself in a bit of a holding pattern while other manufacturers are doing things like changing up the animation engine, the transitions, how it does transparency, how it does effects, blur. Maybe it incorporates stupid NPU AI stuff into the home screen on your phone. All of those things that will become sort of fad or appreciated in the future are likely to be held back because this phone is so much less powerful in terms of graphics, is so much less powerful than the phone it replaced. That's not a great place to be. So all of these techies who have given advice like, hey, you want to buy an Ultra phone because then you'll future-proof. Remember, we used to tell people like, yeah, well, maybe you don't need all the capabilities of your phone today, but if you buy the Pro or the Ultra or the premium phone, as new software updates come out, as new app updates come out, as new games and services come out, you'll have a better experience than if you buy a mid-ranger. That's not true on a Pixel. Well, I should say it's less true on a Pixel 10 than it was on a Pixel 9. The CPU compute doesn't seem to be overly taxed, and the GPU compute is a massive step down. So you're not future-proofing. Your updates for the OS will probably be taken into consideration because Google is doing the Android side and the hardware side, but all of the app updates, third-party apps, are they going to hold back because Google is like a single-digit percentage part of the market? Or are they going to be looking at the mid-ranger performance from Qualcomm and MediaTek and targeting that level of performance instead? You know, someone was quipping like, hey, I'd rather have the X300 FE than any of the Pixels right now because the X300 FE, the neutered version of a Vivo, is more powerful than the Pro, most expensive version of the Pixel. And that's not a great look. That is very disappointing to me. I was kind of talking about this last week too. I really don't know how to conceptualize this. And I keep feeling like I should follow up like what my experiences with this phone have been, but it's just so demoralizing to pick up the Pixel 10 XL as someone who wants to get $1,200 worth of use out of a phone that they buy and realize that it really can't hang with the things that I want to do on a phone, but I know that my use case is kind of niche. But then I have to listen to people say like, well, I'm not bothered that it can't do this, and I'm not bothered that the battery life is kind of trash, and I'm not bothered that it charges so slowly. I've adapted my whole life to managing this phone, and I just have to plug it in at night every night and know that it might not last the day, and that after 200 charge cycles, it's going to throttle the CPU regardless. Because Google software is so good, it's going to artificially slow down my phone after about a year of daily use charge cycles, maybe a year and a half, and I'm not bothered by that. Oh, and I need to keep buying Pixels or Galaxies because then I'll get the best trade-in deals when I trade them in to get a new phone that underperforms at this price. But don't worry because like I got mine on a good sale. And that's hard for me to handle. I don't want to make the video that this is like the most underwhelming purchase I've made probably in like the last 5 years. This is the product that has let me down the most at this price tag. All the things that I've like spent money on that maybe I'm not really getting my money's worth out of, man, Pixel is at the top of that list right now. And I'm not impressed when so much of the Pixel experience has been overtaken by AI. You're not making the phone better. You're just trying to get people hooked on services that are cloud dependent. I need to have a data connection to upload video to finish the video so I'll get prettier, juicier HDR colors in my video and put it back down on the phone. And do you know what I don't have to do on a Vivo, a Xiaomi, an Oppo, a OnePlus, a Realme, a Poco? If I want big, vibrant HDR colors in my video, the phone just does it. And the Pixel can't. Well, actually, the Pixel could. It would just take a little longer to process. Oh, but if it's going to take a little longer to process, better upload it over the internet. That's great. It's going to take just as much battery life to like upload over a 5G data connection with the modem. Because that's the other thing too. All the people that say things like, "Oh, I'm not bothered. I don't care that my phone can't do." Aren't all phones powerful enough anyway? The modem on this thing is an order of magnitude less efficient than importing a Vivo. So right now my SIM card is in my personal SIM card. I also have an eSIM in my X300 Pro, but my personal SIM card is in my X300 Pro. My secondary eSIM is in my X300 Ultra. This has a MediaTek chip, and the Pro has a MediaTek, the Ultra has a Qualcomm. Both of these phones that are imports to the United States, when connected to the sub-6 5G in my neighborhood, both of these phones get significantly better reception than my Pixel 10 Pro XL. Even though this is better than the Pixel 9, this is getting worse radio performance, which takes a big hit on your battery life. The radios are working harder, the phone is working harder, it's processing harder, it's running hot in your pocket for no good reason. But we're not bothered. I'm fine with it. So I want you to love the gadgets you buy, but we don't have a good system for tech education that can explain things like, hey, you know, if you live on the edges of like a cell network and you're dropping a lot of calls, you'll get logarithmically better reception if you import a MediaTek Vivo than if you buy a Pixel from your carrier, if you're on T-Mobile. And that's really sad. That's really sad to me. Like, I used to split time with Pixels and OnePlus. Up until the OnePlus 12, like, I would easily half, like my SIM card would just be back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And then the OnePlus 12 arrived, and you're like, man, the OnePlus 12 is a really good phone. But I still spent some time in a Pixel. And then the OnePlus 13 came, and it really wasn't better than the OnePlus 12, but the Pixel also didn't get better, so I just didn't transfer as much to the Pixel. And now I've just gone whole hog. My SIM card's in a Vivo. And I am not living in the Pixel at all. So this leak for the Pixel 11 Pro XL doesn't look like it's really gonna make up the differences that we see. From the Pixel 10, generationally, it looks like MediaTek and Qualcomm are easily gonna pace the improvements to the Pixel 11, if not extend their lead. I am estimating that the real world practical differences, like if I put an app that you can use on a phone, not a benchmark, not Antutu, not Geekbench, but if I edit audio or edit a photo, or if I try to edit and render a video on my phone, I believe Qualcomm is going to extend their performance lead going from the Pixel 10 to the Pixel 11 with whatever Snapdragon 8 Gen 6 Elite they release the end of this year. It's going to be an even bigger lead than what they started with in 2025. I'm a little anxious about the rumors coming out of MediaTek, but I bet MediaTek is able to at least pace the performance improvement, if not also extend their lead over Google. And both of those companies are going to deliver another uptick in GPU and NPU performance that I don't think we're going to get from Pixel. And it just makes me wonder, like, what are we doing? And why do we own and buy phones? And why do we spend so much money on them? I have to believe that a Pixel 11 Pro is going to come with another price hike. I bet you the base model, more storage, adequate amount of RAM during this RAM and storage apocalypse, this is going to be an expensive phone. And it's going to struggle to completely outpace a 2-year-old mid-ranger. It'll beat it in some areas. It'll have better camera sensors than some of them, but it's going to struggle to just outright win against a phone that cost half as much. And we don't have a way to teach consumers what they're actually spending money on. It's like, all cars are cars. Aren't all cars basically cars? Can you car in your car? Then I guess you have a car. Well, yeah, but do you want better fuel economy? Do you want an electric vehicle? Do you want more internal space? Do you want more carry? Do you want a trunk? Do you want a hatchback? Do you want, more plush seating? Do you want trim? Do you want lights? What is it that you want? Car is not car. Phone is not phone. Aren't all phones basically like the same? No. And do you know how I know that? Is because so many of my family and friends complain about things like the battery life on their iPhones and Pixels. But they don't even realize that there are solutions and alternatives because we've kind of prevented them from easily being accessible here in North America. So, on that bummer of a note, I was really kind of looking to try and have a bit more fun, but the more I kind of dug into what the rumors are on this Tensor, it's making me so sad. Google acquired the talent from HTC. These are like the spiritual successors to HTC phones. And Google's policy now is, that's kind of good enough, and just make them use cloud. It's like the Marie Antoinette of tech is, the phones can't do things like process their own videos after you shoot 4K video. Let them eat cloud. It's so frustrating. Doesn't that make you sad? Shouldn't that make you sad? Like, sure, if you get a Pixel, 11 Pro on like a 60% off sale, you're kind of in a ballpark where the price is okay. but the MSRP is going to be way too high, which means the sales will look incredible, but they're really not that great a bargain. Oh, Pixels have the best cameras. Unless you shoot video. And the photos haven't really been getting better. The AI is really in the I'm just regurgitating stuff. Let me take a drink of water. We need to close this down. I want to see if there are any other comments and stuff. We can kind of catch those comments. But man, I'm so disappointed that this is where they've gone. Because they could have done something really cool. But you know, that would have been a little more expensive. Oh, H2O Otaku, man, I'm feeling for you. It says, I wanted a OnePlus. Oh, come on. Put the comment out. I don't know why, like, Restream just suddenly, like, borked hard. I am over 2.5 hours. That's why. I wanted a OnePlus 13 or 15, but my wallet said I can only get a Pixel on a huge sale. When I try to look at the positives, it feels like I'm coping. North America's phone situation is horrendous. I mean, like, if you only look to the Pixel experience skin, and like the camera app is good, and I still feel like Pixels have really good color processing on skin tone. There are some wins in there, but the harder you drive a $1,000 plus phone, the more the Pixel strategy really falls apart. And I have no way of softening that. And it sucks because I don't want people to feel bad. I have a superpower. I can make you feel great about the tech you purchase, or I can make you feel like crap about the tech you purchase. And I want you to understand what it is that you bought. And I can't find a way to make you feel good about the Pixel and also properly educate. This is why I have this ire over the experience. From MVP, OnePlus 13 can be bought on eBay for around $750 or under after shipping for the 512 gig version. I gotta say, I mean, especially between the OnePlus 12, 13, and 15, I still kind of prefer the OnePlus 12. But the OnePlus 13 is a stonking good deal if you can find one in good condition. From Fat Produce. This is why I'm excited that by the end of this year, I will be living in both a rugged phone and a Clicks communicator, hopefully. Andrew, like, if you pick one up, I don't know if you're gonna go Blackview or 8849. I need to see photos because, man, you know, those tank phones. I've got some tank phones over there. Boy, howdy, they're big. I don't know that someone can just live in a tank and not be like rugged ultra bandolier guy. But I always like love to see like, oh, who's trying to use one? I got a projector on my phone and I'm happy to see you. From AI makes your brain shrink, memory crisis happening, MediaTek phones, do you want to add some more virtual RAM? It's a bummer, but like, yeah, I'm still doing okay on Vivos. Now, Vivo prices are definitely climbing, but man, so the thing about Vivo, sorry, not Vivo, the thing about MediaTek and why I kind of like them on Vivos, that process, like MediaTek really leapfrogged on compression. So yeah, it sucks when you only have 12 gigs of RAM in a phone, but a MediaTek chip handles that unpacking and packing of information really well now. It used to be terrible at file compression. Qualcomm used to just curb stomp them on unpacking and packing files. People act like that's not a big deal, but every time you process an image to share it in a text or in a messaging app, that's compressing a file. You take a video and you make it smaller, is compressing a file. And in like one generation of chips, MediaTek went from being the worst to kind of embarrassing Qualcomm in something that they used to do really well. So when you're stuck with 12 gigs of RAM, but you have a MediaTek chip, it's actually pretty good at managing some of that compromise. That being said, with all of the future looking at like, oh, you're going to have language models on your phone, we should have phones like the OnePlus, was it the OnePlus 12 that had a Chinese variant that had 20 gigs of RAM? That should be a lot more common, but data centers, you know? Just got to make more of those data centers. It's great. Woohoo! So pretty cool. Why don't we go ahead and wrap this up, folks? Thank you everybody for tuning in. I know the beginning of this was a little, it's a sensitive topic, and it's one that I keep bringing up, and I know inelegantly. I know I'm not the right delivery mechanism to be talking about those kinds of issues and the people who are affected by them. And I'm not the megaphone, right? You need to listen to people's stories when they've been harmed by AI. And me recounting their stories that were listed in an article is woefully insufficient. But I post these articles in hopes that people who are watching these streams and listening to the replays will go and give those websites traffic. And Ars Technica desperately needs you to click on their links and view their content. But from there, they're helping to share stories that we need to hear. It's the tough story that we don't want to hear because it's so gross and so skeezy, but we need to hear so that we can have an opinion, an informed opinion, and hopefully start thinking of ways that we can reduce the harm that comes from the things that we love to play with. The gadgets and tech that make up our hobbies and our lifestyle. You're watching a stream like mine, you are entertained by the gadget and what you can do on the gadget. But that also means we need to be the ones responsible for hosting some earnest and honest conversations about when our hobby maybe could potentially be used to hurt people. So I really appreciate, I mean, like, through that section of the podcast, I saw viewership drop, but man, we went from like 20 viewers when I was talking about AI deepfake nudes to, 70 and 80 by the end of that 2-article segment. And then it kind of dipped again because I'm going 3 hours on this podcast again. But that's important to me, and it should be important to us. And I hope that we can be those resources in our circles of family and friends, just to let them know that this is something that could happen. So many people, again, when I complain about there's a lack of education in consumer tech, a part of it is also like so many people don't even know that they're being taken advantage of. So many people don't even know that they're being scammed. We've established legitimate business practices that hurt people and hurt them financially and hurt them emotionally, and they don't even know because they're just so into the habit of using these products and services. So I really do appreciate y'all. Sometimes these podcasts can be a slog. Sometimes, I love to start my week, hanging out with all of you fine folks. And sometimes I don't have good news to share. But it reassures me, and it sort of powers the next week of production on videos and articles and editorials and stuff, because I know that there are at least some people out there that are thinking, might not even agree with me, but are at least thinking about these issues and these situations. And that's enough. Because sometimes it just feels like we're all alone out there. I'm just, bashing my face into my keyboard and screaming into the social media void, and everyone's like, oh, but I'm not bothered. But no, people are. And that's important. And when we're bothered, we can change things. So I hope we do. Folks, I want you to have an amazing week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to do awesome. I want you to be awesome with your technology. I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. Keep your heads down. Keep a hold of that mental health. Check in with family and friends. Find your outlets. You got to be there. You got to be the good tech neighbor I know you can be. I'll catch you back next week. I love you all. Be well. Stay safe.